A couple of weeks ago, we got an announcement from Xbox that some of their first party titles will be transitioning to third party and would be made available on other platforms. Now, at the time, we didn't know what that meant. The internet went crazy and there were a lot of rumors. The brand took a hit. A lot of videos came out about people denouncing Xbox kind of as their preferred brand, but they didn't give us any more information than that. This is the update that we finally got, and I'm going to summarize it for you a little bit. Honestly, they didn't say very much. The entire podcast felt more like an advertisement for their Xbox Game Pass and cloud gaming services than any answer that any fans were looking for. Let's talk about the exclusivity question. So, they didn't give us a whole lot of answers about the exclusivity or how they're going to be gauging what becomes an exclusive in a first party versus what becomes a third party. That all felt very nebulous and I think quite purposefully. But the things that they did say is that Starfield and Indiana Jones are not the titles that are going to be moving into a third party platform. There are 4 titles that are going to be made available on third party out of a 10 title 2024 lineup. We don't know what those 4 games are. They were very hush hush about it. My guess is because they have a June conference where a lot of these titles are going to be revealed and they want to save the reveal for that. That being said, they have about 10 titles planned out for 2024, including a Diablo 4 expansion. That's about as much as they said, alongside with Hellblade. So we don't really have a lot of insight into what they're releasing. They were pretty quiet about their games. But we do know that 4 of those titles are going to be dropping on third party platforms. And Phil Spencer said that it would make sense once they come out. So I imagine that they're going to be some of the smaller titles that are not necessarily going to be attractions to Xbox. They're games that people will either play or not play depending on when they're at. So making those available to third party platforms, I think, may make a lot of sense. Now, like I said, I don't know what those games are, so I'm purely speculating here. I may be wrong. But that is all when it comes to exclusivity. Xbox claims to not be changing the strategy or the way that they think about exclusives. I think that they clearly are, seeing as the Xbox have had the lowest amount of sales in terms of hardware, and that the Xbox Game Pass numbers have been kind of low or not growing. And Phil Spencer specifically mentioning that they need the industry to grow, they need Xbox to grow. So, how do you find those new players? He mentions that you either monetize the existing players that you have or you find ways to bring new players into your platform. And I think that Xbox is very much doing the latter. They want to bring new players into the platform, and acquiring studios and becoming a publisher entity aligns with that because they can publish their games into Xbox Game Pass, the Xbox environment, and potentially attract people to that platform and grow it from within. They do say that they're not changing the strategy, that there's not really a change in the strategy or their approach to exclusives. I think that that's a big lie. It is a pretty dramatic change from what we're used to seeing, which is exclusives for a platform that you want to play. This game is exclusive. You want to play it, you have to buy this platform. Versus now, we're all playing a little bit more loosey goosey with the lines of exclusivity, which may be a win, maybe a loss. Who knows? I don't have a big dog in that fight. But Xbox already has some blurred lines in terms of exclusivity because a lot of their games are available on PC as well. So they kind of go hand in hand. I don't know. It was all wishy washy kind of corporate answer of them saying, like, yeah, we did say that some of our games are going to be released on third party. There's only 4 of them, and we don't know what else is going to happen after that, but we are committed to the Xbox brand, is essentially what they said. So, not a bad answer, not a great answer. We got some clarity, but not a huge amount. So, there's not a whole lot to go off there in terms of exclusivity. But I do think that Xbox is going through kind of a fundamental change in strategy, despite what they are saying to be the opposite. I just think that it's all changing. So, what about the future of Xbox? So first, they were pretty vague about what would count as a first-party game versus a third-party game. The interviewer specifically asked them, "What kind of criteria are you following to do all of this?" And they essentially said, "Well, we think about growing our platform. So if it makes sense for the platform to grow, we'll throw it in third-party, and if it doesn't make sense, we'll keep it first-party." That's kind of the vibe that I got out of the whole thing. Make sure you watch it. I don't want to be misconstruing anything, but that's pretty much the vibe that I got. So it looks like, as far as for the future, they're going to be heavily focusing on Xbox Game Pass as a service, which we all expected. It's the thing that I think is the most viable for them. They could essentially acquire a whole bunch of studios, release their games under the Xbox Game Pass umbrella, and sort of attract people to the Xbox platform in that way. Interesting thing in terms of exclusivity is that they said that Xbox Game Pass will only be available on Xbox. It will always launch first party titles will always launch on Xbox Game Pass day one, and that all of the first party titles will be available on Xbox. Uh, so those are kind of the things that you can expect regarding Xbox. The future is going to be focused a lot more on cloud gaming and sort of Xbox Game Pass and accessibility in that way. They want to grow their platform as large as they can and bring player into that ecosystem to recoup some of the hardware sales. That's what I get out of it as well. They call it not fundamentally changing their strategy, but I think it's a huge shift in their strategy. Annoyingly enough, Xbox was kind of asked about how do they think that Xbox want to keep up with the industry, and they essentially cited or said everything that I said before, where they're trying to grow the platform as big as possible because the lack of growth is what stagnates the industry and what leads to job eliminations. There was something really interesting to me about when they asked Xbox about wanting to keep up with the industry, and they essentially said that they need to grow, which is what I've been saying. They want to spread out and absorb other things so they can grow the number of players because Phil Spencer says if an industry doesn't grow, then that leads to job eliminations. And that's kind of what happened to. And Phil Spencer seems to believe that Xbox's health depends on growth, and that's what they're going to be focusing themselves with. Kind of the same thing that I said earlier. When it comes to game libraries and preservation, Xbox prides itself into being cognizant of game preservation and preserving ways of backwards compatibility. And they essentially said as long as our cloud services and our Game Pass library services are up, then you will have access to all of the games, even the ones that you own. Which again, to me, is kind of like the big problem with all cloud-based services or service-based gaming, is that you don't actually own any of these titles, and they're not really concerned with game preservation. They're just concerned with you paying for the service to have access to your titles, and that way they can squeeze some more money out of you if you want to play these titles rather than just like a one-time sale. And backwards compatibility kind of disallows that process to happen, which is why we're not seeing a whole lot of it. Used games are going to be a thing of the past now, and game preservation is going to be left to the people that are willing to pirate those games and put the work in to make sure that those games are playable to people that don't even have access to the original piece of hardware. So don't give Xbox any applause for game preservation. They're fine. Other than that, that's kind of all I got. Tell me what you think. Do you think Xbox is headed in a good direction? How did you feel about the some exclusives answer? I felt like everything was wishy washy and that this conference was pretty much an advertisement for Xbox Game Pass and what their ideas for growth really are and what they should be. But I don't feel like they answered a lot of things that Xbox game fans or Xbox brand fans really wanted to know. Or I feel as vague about their future as I did when I started the video. Anyway, tell me what you thought. Comments below. Do you disagree? Do you agree? Just share your thoughts. Let's go.